Recording yourself is a strange thing to do. It asks you to speak, act, and think in ways our ancestors never did. So if you feel self-conscious and awkward in front of the camera, remember it's a natural response to an unnatural situation. When you're talking with another person in a conversation, most of your attention can stay on what you're saying. You're not simultaneously managing a setup, monitoring how your face looks, tracking whether your voice sounds strange, or deciding whether to keep going or start again. A conversation is just one thing. When you record yourself, you're doing several things all at once, and some of those things are working against each other. Today, I'm going to explain why recording yourself feels so strange and why it really is harder than it looks. When you record yourself, your attention gets pulled in several directions at once. Part of you is trying to express the point, another part is managing the camera, the microphone, and whether this take is even usable. Another part is watching how you come across or how you look. Trying to sound natural while monitoring how you sound is one of the fastest ways to stop sounding natural. This is because attention is a finite resource. When part of it is being used to observe yourself, that part is no longer available for speaking. You're not fully focused on what you're saying because part of your mind has stepped outside to watch. That is a different mental state from ordinary conversation, and it's very difficult to relax into expressing yourself when part of you is busy trying to control it. All of that monitoring is not just distracting. It adds to the pressure that is already there the moment you hit record. Talking on camera is not a conversation. It's not a voice note to a friend or a thought you're working out privately. It's something that could be seen by potentially anyone and judged by anyone. And whether you're sharing a single opinion or building a business around your ideas, you're aware that you're representing something. You want it to land properly and reflect well on you. That awareness sits underneath everything. When your mind is already managing the setup, the monitoring, and now the weight of what it actually means, you can go blank. If you say nothing, you have nothing to put out into the world. When you're new to recording content, you face a decision when neither option is ideal. If you speak naturally, without a script, you may sound warmer and more like yourself, but you may also ramble, lose your point, repeat yourself, or go blank. If you write everything out and read it word for word, you stay on track, but you don't really sound like you. One version sounds more alive, but scattered. The other sounds like you know exactly what you're saying, but you're completely flat and uninteresting. The first time I attempted to video myself for YouTube, I ran into this dilemma. I was creating faceless meditations at the time, and I decided to add a short introduction with my face on camera before one of them. I started with bullet points and recorded them. When I watched it back, I could tell I was rambling and wasn't making my point well. So I wrote a full script and recorded again, this time reading it word for word. The rambling disappeared, but so did the personality. I sounded wooden. I sounded like a robot. I ended up with two versions of the same video and didn't like either of them. So I didn't post either of them. I uploaded the meditation without any introduction, and it was another year before I was willing to try going on camera again. That's when I decided to buy a teleprompter. I hadn't fully decided whether I was going to script everything or work from bullet points, but in both of those earlier attempts, my eyes kept drifting to my notes, so the teleprompter was meant to solve that issue. But a teleprompter comes with its own problems. You have to keep up. The script keeps moving and you lose your place. This gives you another thing to monitor while presenting. So while it solves one problem, it adds another. What all of this showed me is that awkwardness on camera is not one thing. You can feel awkward because you are too loose. You can feel awkward because you're too flat. And you can feel awkward because the equipment you brought in to help has created its own set of problems. You can't win whatever you do when you're new, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. And I'll go into that in a moment after I just touch on the authenticity trap. People who consume content online want two things that don't naturally go together, at least not until you've been creating content for a while. People say they want authenticity, but they don't have the patience for it. They don't want you visibly searching for your words or working things out in real time. So what you're trying to do is come across genuinely yourself inside a format that rewards compression and smooth delivery. Those two things pull in opposite directions. And when you're early in content creation, there is no clean way to satisfy both at once. For you and me, it's a case of deciding which discomfort we can tolerate more. For me, looking like I didn't know what I was talking about felt worse than sounding boring. So I chose the script. That felt like the safer option at the time. It was the one I could live with and allowed me to move forward. That is still where I am, but it's shifting. This video is scripted. The other videos I'm recording today are not. And that's not because the fear of looking like I don't know what I'm talking about has gone, but because the constraints of scripting are starting to outweigh the fear. Each 5 to 10 minute video I create takes about 7 hours to write, record, and edit, and I'm not even doing any fancy editing. As someone building a business, with each video currently getting about 6 views, what I'm doing now is not sustainable. I need quantity, and with that comes repetition and consequently improvement. The more familiar the equipment and the recording process has become, the less mental space it takes up, which means I have a little more room for actually speaking. So now I feel I'm ready to try without the script. That shift is what tells me the awkwardness was never really about whether I was cut out for this. It was about how much the task was asking of me at the time. Awkwardness on camera is not proof that content creation isn't for you. Very often, it's just what happens when too many parts of a new task are still requiring conscious attention at the same time. Think of learning to drive. When you first learn, it feels unnatural and mentally demanding because there are too many things to track at once. Mirrors, pedals, steering, speed, positioning, other cars, road signs. You're not naturally bad at driving when that feels like a lot. It feels like a lot because it is a lot. Over time, some of those things became more automatic. So your attention is freed up to focus on the road more calmly. Being on camera works the same way. At first, too many parts of the process still require conscious effort. The setup, the monitoring, the equipment, decisions, and the performance pressure. That is why it doesn't feel natural, and as those parts become more familiar, they start demanding less of your attention, and you have more left over for what you're actually trying to say. Once you understand that the awkwardness is largely a cognitive load problem, it stops feeling like evidence that something is wrong with you. You're not vain, too shy, or too self-conscious. You're doing a difficult, divided, artificial task that you aren't yet familiar enough with for it to feel normal. It's very easy to start treating every stumble, every flat moment, every awkward take as something that has to be fixed before you can post. There is a reason beginners put so much pressure on getting early content right, and why one imperfect video can feel like it says more about you than it actually does. If you want to understand more about that, I have a video on why beginners feel their content needs to be perfect before they'll post. That too is part of this series, Speaking Up as a Content Creator. I'll pop the links in the description.
It doesn't have to sound